In the spring of 1946, after the devastation of the war, a young man in Atlantic City stood at a crossroads in his life. Still freshly graduated, unsure of his future, he found himself drawn to the sea. Raised by a father who had served in the merchant marine, the boy had grown up with stories of adventure, danger, and survival on the open waters. The call of the ocean was a constant hum in his mind, a song of freedom that only the sea could offer. But he didn't fully understand what it meant to be a part of that world until fate set him on a course he could never have predicted. He applied to the Merchant Marine Academy, hoping to carve out a future that would mirror his father's life, but in truth, he wasn't sure what he was getting into. He didn't have a clear plan. He only knew that the vast ocean held a promise he could not resist. The spring of 1946 marked a turning point. His future was about to be shaped by forces greater than himself. A young man's life was about to change as he stood on the edge of the ocean, unaware of the trials and heroism that awaited him in the vast unknown. The young man's journey began at San Mateo, California, where he spent his first year at the Merchant Marine Academy. In the rolling hills of the California coast, far from home and the familiar, he was thrust into a new world. The rigorous training pushed him beyond his comfort zone, and he began to realize that the sea was both his calling and his greatest challenge. The Academy's instructors were tough, demanding perfection from every cadet. He learned not just about ships, cargo, and navigation, but about himself. Days were long, and the discipline was unyielding, but there was something about the constant battle against nature and the lessons taught by the sea that brought him clarity. As he learned to navigate the waters and master his craft, he also learned to navigate his own fears and uncertainties. The training was physically demanding, mentally taxing, and emotionally draining. But there, among the other cadets, he realized that he was becoming something he hadn't yet fully understood, a part of something greater than himself. As his first year came to a close, the young man felt the pull of the ocean more than ever. He was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, not only for the sake of his career, but for the chance to prove himself to the sea itself. Every lesson, every hardship was a step toward something bigger. As the young man faced the fierce tides of training, he began to realize that the ocean was not just a place. It was a crucible where he would forge his destiny. The time came for the cadet to leave the academy and set sail on his first mission. He had hoped for a route to South America, sunny short voyages to Brazil and Argentina, where he could see the world and enjoy the fruits of his hard work. But instead he found himself assigned to a Victory ship that had been mothballed since the war. This ship, once part of the mighty fleet of post-war merchant vessels, was now just a relic, waiting to be revived. The young man and his fellow cadets were tasked with bringing the ship back to life, a job that required them to clear the ship's decks and prepare it for sea. They were stationed at the James River in Virginia, in the infamous boneyard where old warships were left to rust. For days they worked tirelessly, cleaning and prepping the ship, peeling away the layers of time and neglect. When the ship was finally ready, the cadets' sense of excitement grew, but instead of heading to the familiar warm waters of South America, the ship was directed toward the unknown, Tokyo. The words Tokyo echoed in his mind. This was not what he had envisioned, but duty called. There was no turning back. The ocean was about to pull him into its depths in a way he never imagined. As the ship prepared to sail to Tokyo, the young man was unaware that his path was about to lead him straight into the heart of history's greatest conflict. The journey began, and the young man marveled at the unfamiliarity of it all. The Panama Canal, that man-made marvel, loomed ahead, its locks and waterways marking a milestone in his voyage. But the cadet's mind was not on the canal's historical significance. He was thinking about the vast ocean before him, the uncertainty of the mission, and the strange sense of foreboding that seemed to hang in the air. As they crossed the Pacific toward Tokyo, the ship was filled with military cargo, tanks, jeeps, and all manner of war material. This was not the peaceful voyage to South America he had expected. This was a military mission, part of the ongoing occupation of Japan, and the young man was now a part of that mission. He realized that he was no longer just a cadet on a training mission. He was a soldier of sorts, part of the machinery of war. It was here, during the long stretches of open water, that the young man began to reflect more deeply on the path that had brought him here. The endless ocean stretched out before him, a vast expanse that seemed to mirror the vast uncertainties of his future. As the young man sailed into the unknown, he began to realize that this journey would not only shape his career, but would transform him into something more than he ever imagined. A man of the sea, a man of war, and a man of history. The ship was nearing Tokyo when disaster struck. The typhoon Kazuya raged through the Pacific, bringing winds of over 120 miles per hour. The young man was at the helm, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders as the ship heaved and swayed in the violent storm. The Victory ship, laden with tanks and war materials, became a precarious vessel, its stability constantly threatened by the massive waves that seemed to come from all directions. As the ship tilted dangerously, the young man felt a surge of panic. The ship was rolling 30 degrees to either side, and the tanks on the deck were no longer secure. He and the second mate stood on the starboard wing, helpless as the steel chains holding the tanks began to snap. With each wave, the ship leaned further, and the cadet feared for the ship's survival. But then, in the midst of the chaos, the captain, Captain LaRue, emerged. The captain, who had been nominated for sainthood by the Catholic Church years later, was a steady presence. He assessed the situation with calm precision and ordered the ship to make a hard left turn. The young cadet, now feeling the weight of leadership, followed the captain's command. For hours, the ship battled the typhoon head-on, the waves crashing against the bow as the rest of the convoy sailed on without them. After what felt like an eternity, the storm subsided. The ship, battered but still afloat, made its way towards Tokyo, arriving late but alive. The young man, forever changed by the experience, realized that the sea was a force to be reckoned with, but he also knew that courage, leadership, and resolve were what kept them afloat. In the heart of the storm, the young man learned that survival wasn't just about fighting the elements, it was about trusting in the leadership that guided him through the chaos. With the storm behind them, the ship finally reached Tokyo. However, there was little time to rest. The young cadet and his crew received new orders. This time they were headed for Incheon, Korea, to assist in the invasion. The conflict in Korea was escalating, and the young cadet was now about to be thrust into one of the most significant military operations of his life. The journey to Incheon was fraught with danger. The ship was part of a convoy, but it was constantly navigating through enemy-controlled waters, unsure of what lay ahead. For the young cadet, this mission was no longer just about completing his training. It was about survival, camaraderie, and the undeniable reality of war. As the young man sailed into the heart of Korea, he understood that this was no longer a training mission. It was a fight for survival, a fight for history.